We are a national nonprofit membership organization dedicated to representing the interests of millions of workers and their families who, each year, suffer the consequences of work related injuries or occupational illnesses and who need expert legal assistance to obtain medical care and other relief under his worker compensation programs. Willig is a network of like minded advocates for workers' rights, sharing information and knowledge, a sense of commitment and kinship, and networking to help each other and our clients.
Well, Willig was created by a small group of attorneys who were interested in the workers' compensation field. We got together to help represent our interests and the interests of our clients. Willig has traditionally been on behalf of injured workers and their attorneys, and we work very hard to establish ourselves as the go-to organization when any questions come up on the field.
Over the course of the last 100 years, individual lawyers in law firms fought individual claims against local employers or regional claims offices. And we fought and we won. And suddenly it dawned on business that if they took a more national approach, that they could change the rules of the game. And by changing the rules of the game, it could benefit them. Willig historically has played a role in identifying where those changes are coming, what sort of forces are at work that are seeking to undermine the rights of the families of injured workers, and have fought together to work to offset those changes and learn from the past errors of other trial lawyers across the country. So now, instead of an individual group of people fighting individual claims, we have a national organization that people can work together to fight together.
In the early days, where we were not a large organization and we were scrapped for resources, including owning a computer, it was a very, very difficult task. During the late 1990s, the deformed movements moved across the United States, starting on the West Coast, coming through New York in 1996, and in 1997, the Deform Act hit the state of Ohio. It was Willig and the organization that we had behind us that was able to jump in and help the late Esther Weissman and her team of attorneys assembled in Ohio to defeat the Deform Act.
Willig's involvement and the people willing to come in and help from out of state, for those of us who practiced in Ohio, was, just demonstrated that what people were willing to sacrifice for a state that wasn't even theirs.
Without this organization, I don't think that many of the states would have been able to withstand the onslaught by the insurance industry and the business community, and that this was the only thing that provided enough resources, information, and support so that the states could actually compete in the legislative arenas against those forces that wanted to reduce the benefits for injured workers.
It was that kind of commitment that made Willig, a powerful force, and if it didn't have the power behind it of truth and what we were trying to do to achieve a goal greater than that organization, the organization of people in the room, it wouldn't have survived to this day.
So here we are now 20 years after the formation of the organization, and we are stronger than ever, more organized than ever, and are a force to be reckoned with. So coming full circle 20 years later, the organization that started out as a small group of dedicated attorneys has become an intensive, focused, large group of attorneys, very seasoned in their practice, very focused at representing the rights of injured workers.
Well, Willig actually has representatives in Washington, D.C. that do a lot of lobbying for us and do a kind of interviewing legislators with respect to workers' compensation claims and worker compensation laws. So we have a presence in Washington as well as a presence in almost all of the 50 states. So we're able to see what's coming in advance and help other states in terms of looking out for possible deforms that are on the way.
They have tremendous resources and they spend tremendous amounts of time setting up plans to reduce workers' rights all around the country. And the only way that we can respond to that is through getting together and talking about what is happening around the country and to provide resources both at the local level and the national level to get our side of the story out.
We're in every state dealing with the legal issues. We're in Washington dealing with the legal issues. Most attorneys understand that they could be practicing in New Jersey, where I practice, or in California, and there could be a legal issue coming up in Texas that if it passes, eventually it's going to make its way west or east and get to that state. And there's no organization that has the finger on the pulse because of the network of attorneys and the dedication of the employees. There's no other organization in the United States that has the scope, breadth, and responsiveness on workers' compensation issues and work-related issues generally than Willig. Nobody compares.
These insurance companies are organized on a national effort to enact their deforms, and they have been for years, and Willig is the only voice out there for injured workers, and the sharing of this information, the sharing of defenses that have worked and not worked in the various states are very important for the future of workers' compensation across the country.
Unless we hang together, we'll hang separately, as I think Benjamin Franklin said. It's extremely important that each state work together, and one of the best things we do when we have our board meetings is members of the board from around the country talk about what's new in their state. And we see things that are changing in other states, and when we do, we're able to react to them, and our state trial lawyers are able to react to them. Very important.
Willig is such a huge networking group. I think that's one of the big pluses. There's also information exchange. Besides the legislative representation, which I mentioned, there's an email listserv. And one of the things I really like about the email listserv is you can send out a question to 1,000 members and somebody will know the answer to that question. It helps in your own state, and particularly with legislation which might be pending, which would be harmful to the injured worker. We also have a continuing legal education system, which is superior to any of the other education systems that I've been to.
We are a repository now of information. The AMA Guide 6th edition is a classic example. Not only did we help at a hearing in the U.S. Congress, but also we have amassed all of this information so that the states that are considering adoption of the 6th edition will have all of the experts who have been critical, all of the hearings that are part of it, with the idea that this fulfills the role. That's one thing. The second is we have authored many amicus briefs, Friends of the Court briefs, throughout the country. And so we're here, we're recognized for our expertise, and some of what we have written has been quoted by appellate courts.
Now, Willig is the only national bar association fighting for injured workers' rights in the country right now. Aside from that, some of the greatest minds in workers' compensation are members of Willig, and I mean, for me personally, I learn something new there every day. You know, from the membership at large, from the executive committee, from the leadership, there's something that you come away with by being a member of Willig, aside from the continuing legal education, just the networking, the friendships, everything that I've developed and that most people have developed by being members of Willig have just been incredible. It's, you know, you can't quantify, you know, how much you actually get from Willig.
Because workers' comp is perceived to be on the decline, we don't see a lot of young kids getting into this anymore. So Willig is such a friendly place that we have figured out a way to welcome the young people into the workers' comp practice. They have a lot of fun, they learn a lot, and the thing about it is that there's never a time that I've ever heard of a Willig member refusing to give advice, time, effort to somebody that needs a hand.
One of the things I get out of Willig is it reinvigorates me. Recharges, like convention, I've always said it recharges my batteries, because when I participate in a Willig event, whether it be a regional conference or whether it be the convention or whether it be a board meeting, there are exceptional individuals around that table. I mean, most of those folks are much smarter than I am, and very aggressive and very involved as community leaders, and they're sacrificing their time and their energy and their finances to participate in the more global, if you will, common purpose that the association stands for.
Any practitioner, no matter what state or jurisdiction he is in, she is in, who represents injured workers will not find a better resource of information and a better group of colleagues to connect with than those people who are with WILG. We represent the best practitioners in all 50 states.
If you want to be the best possible workers' comp lawyer, if you are involved in staying on top of legislative changes around the country that are going to be coming your way because they're in some other state, and I promise you that's the way it works. If you handle claims that potentially have multi-state implications and need access to lawyers around the country on a national listserv, if you need legislative research that is cutting-edge research that is being used by the top workers' comp experts around the country, if you are interested in knowing what changes are not just happening in your state and other states, but at the national level that are impacting your practice, and if you want to be the best possible expert in workers' compensation law on behalf of your claimants, why would you not join Willie?